She grew emotional, she got angry, but in two congressional hearings this week, the Secretary of State, Hillary Clinton, stood her ground about the attack in Libya, which took the lives of 4 Americans, including the United States ambassador. What's angered critics is that appeals for more security at the Benghazi consulate went unheeded. Listen to this from Senator John McCain.
Were you and the president made aware of the classified cable from Chris Stevens said that the United States consulate in Benghazi could not survive a sustained assault? Numerous warnings, including personally to me, about the security were unanswered or unaddressed. It took a CNN reporter looking through the consulate to find Chris Stevens' last warning.
That reporter, of course, was our own senior international correspondent, Arwa Damon, who found Ambassador Chris Stevens' journal in the ruins of that consulate in Benghazi. Arwa is joining us now from Beirut. Remind our viewers, Arwa, what was it like when you got to that Benghazi consulate?
Well, we arrived on scene 3 days after the attack had taken place to find it, even at that point in time, completely unsecured, not being treated like a crime scene at all. The vast majority of the buildings had been burnt, and to access the so-called safe room, we had to crawl through a window, which we then later found out was the same window that Ambassador Stevens' body had been pulled out of by other Libyan individuals later on that night of September 11th. When we went inside that particular area, the room itself, the bedroom, was covered with black soot. We did, as you mentioned there, find the diary lying on the ground in between the chair and the bed. It was really quite hair-raising and sombering to look through it, to be standing there, beginning to imagine what had transpired. We also saw in the bathroom, for example, dark rust-colored stains that we photographed. We also managed to find other sensitive documentation. It was really quite startling to realize that all of this evidence had been left behind, that there was really no effort underway to secure it. The other thing that immediately also caught our attention was that it did most certainly seem as if the consulate was not adequately secured. It was very much, as we do now know, other senior embassy staff on the ground had been calling it a soft target, Wolf.
Like me, Arwa, you listened to that 5.5 hours of Q&A with the Secretary of State before the Senate and the House Foreign Affairs Committees, and a lot of issues were discussed. But what stands out in your mind that you did really hear?
Well, what was quite surprising and what was discussed is the situation in Libya right now, where the investigation stands, where the U.S. investigation stands, and what the U.S. is doing to try to bring the perpetrators of this attack to justice, because the Libyan authorities have either been unwilling or incapable of clamping down on these various extremist militias. In the days following the attack, they did tell us, senior Libyan officials did tell us, that they had detained dozens of individuals for interrogation. As far as we know, they have all been released. And these extremist militias, to include Ansar al-Sharia, that is believed to have ties to al-Qaeda, are acting with as much impunity today, if not more, as they had been back in September when this attack took place. These are also militias, as Secretary Clinton herself stated, are militias that do have ties to al-Qaeda in the Maghreb. She also spoke about weapons moving from Libya to terrorists operating in Mali and in Algeria. And so one would assume that a major topic of discussion would also be what is happening, what sort of effort is underway to try to either force the Libyan authorities to clamp down on these militias, or if they're incapable of doing that, what the U.S. is doing, because at the end of the day, we're talking about the assassination of an American ambassador and 3 other Americans, and those that carried out this attack are acting with complete and total impunity and have even more power now, arguably, than they did back then. There's a massive intimidation campaign underway in Benghazi. Security has continued to deteriorate. We've also had an attack against the Italian consul general, numerous attacks against Libyan security forces, and of course, most recently, that warning, the Brits telling their foreign nationals to evacuate Benghazi, other Western nations doing so as well because of an imminent threat that exists against Western interests. Wolf?
Arwa Damon, she was on the scene in Benghazi 3 days after that terror attack, long before the FBI got there. That's an amazing fact still stands out in my mind as well. Arwa, thank you very much.